ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is slapping me, yes, slapping me.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy WETOODEEP. Welcome back to another episode of the Slapping Meat Community Show. We got a good episode for you as we are talking NFL playoffs. We got some wrestling things to talk about. And then we'll get to talking about the playoffs. We got a lot of questions from the Discord. Just a preface, I may not get to all of them. I'm going to do as many as I can on this episode. A lot of wrestling and NFL related questions for this episode. If I don't hit yours, don't think that I missed it on purpose. I read it. And what I am trying to do is I'm trying to maintain the timing of this episode. I know a lot of the people I've talked to in the server are fine with the longer episodes. For me, though, just personally, as the person recording the episode, I'm trying to keep it in that sweet spot of about an hour and 30 minutes. That's about the sweet spot for a podcast. Most radio shows are about, they're 2-hour schedules, but with commercials and everything, when they get posted as podcasts, they're about 90 minutes. And so that's sort of the sweet spot in the industry, and so that's where I want to try to keep it. Because after that, anything longer than about 90 minutes, for the average listener, they start to tune out on some parts that aren't as entertaining. So if I don't get to your question, don't take it personally. We'll just save it for the next episode. Before we get into Slapping Meat Community Show, I want to promote, because I don't think I made this sort of abundantly clear. I didn't promote it on the show last week. So last week's episode was titled Just Yappin'. And it was titled that because I didn't have a lot planned, and I went into a sort of rant mode. Y'all know I'm very good at that. Where I went in on the idea of like corporate greed or something like that, right? And during the day, that Monday, as I was recording that, during the day, I had the idea of like, the original idea was like, what if I changed the name of Slapping Meat Community Show to Just Yappin'? Because I like that idea. And ultimately I decided, well, no, I don't want to do that because I've already changed the name a couple times of the podcast. I've made a lot of changes over the last, 6 to 8 months for the podcast. And I like the lane here where this could be the Slapping Meat Community Show with the idea of football and wrestling. So, but I liked the idea of having a podcast where it wasn't structured. It was simply just me yapping, me talking on a microphone, right? And maybe I pre-plan like segments or like stories to react to or something, but there's no straight structure of what the content's going to be. It's sort of a surprise each week to the listener. And so I announced on Thursday last week the Just Yapping podcast in the Discord. But it was sort of like, I'm not sure if everyone's solid. I probably should have put it in a different segment or, did the @everyone tag on Discord so that everyone would be alerted to it. So that first episode of the Just Yappin' podcast released on Friday, this past Friday. Definitely more traffic so far to the YouTube, and we're going to address that on Friday because I got some comments about that I want to make. So just tune in for that, if anything. But we definitely had a lot more traffic to the YouTube, probably because it's the same YouTube as this podcast is on. Whereas the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts would be a completely different podcast RSS feed that you would have had to find. I didn't realize how long it would take for the show to even appear on Spotify. It was immediately on Apple Podcasts, but it took like an hour or two for it to show up on Spotify. And so I'm not sure if, so I wanted to take the time during today's show to promote that in case you didn't hear or see it, and sort of explain what WETOODEEP Entertainment is, going forward. Tuesdays will be Slapping Me Community Show. Friday will be Just Yappin' Podcast. And that's going to be more of the strict, political, pop culture, religion, philosophy, psychology, reaction to different, pop culture things. I'll say one of the cool things that I'm doing, we used to do a segment here called Thirsty Tuesday, and I DM'd Wavy D earlier today and was like, hey, I'm going to bring that back. I don't know what I'm going to name it since it's on a Friday show, but I want to bring that back. But rather than me picking the people, I want you to pick them for me. I saw the list that he sent me. I have a list of 32 in the bracket. I'm going to make the rules, and the rules are this. I've reserved the right to change any two from his list with two from my list. Or from two people that I would put in there that he didn't put in there, right? And so I don't know who I'm going to do yet, but we will, if I'm going to do it at all, we'll see. But I do reserve that right. At least 30 of the 32 names will be Wavy D submitted. We'll put it in a bracket, and we'll start that on Friday. So with that being said, and so the rules for that are essentially going to be, would I date this person, right? And ultimately, we'll see what celebrity out there that I would, if given the opportunity, would I date, right? So that's sort of what's going to be fun there. With that, also, as we do Discord questions on this show, those are going to be football and wrestling related. Submit any other question, no topic is off limits. Those type of questions, as you submit them, will automatically go, to the Just Yapping, list. But anyway, let's jump in to the ropes, or what I like to call in the ropes. And the first thing we'll start with is Drew McIntyre in this past episode on Friday Night SmackDown won the WWE Championship. Now, I don't mind it. I really don't. I don't mind the move. Not watching here recently, the weekly shows, has sort of put me in a mood of okay, that's cool, but I'm not quite certain where this leads. I saw the post today, though, and Kara in Discord will not like this in the WETOODEEP Discord for the show. She's not going to like this. I saw the post today, sort of fan booking, like fantasy booking, and basically saying that what could happen is there's like a tournament going on for Saturday night's main event to face Drew McIntyre at that event. Now that's going to be held in Canada. The belief is Sami Zayn's probably going to win that tournament, and Sami Zayn will face Drew McIntyre. Sami will lose, then enter the Royal Rumble in Saudi. Sami will win the Royal Rumble, and then at WrestleMania 42 face Drew McIntyre again. Sami has never beaten Drew McIntyre in a singles match in their careers in WWE. And so Sami gets over that hump, finally gets the title at WrestleMania. I like that story. I know some people won't, but I like that story a lot better than the other options that are out there. The only other thing I can think of, potentially, like, my mind immediately went to, like, is Obafemi going to debut and immediately fight Drew McIntyre for the championship? That's the only other option that I'm considering or thinking about off the top of my head. Is Cody going to get a rematch? I think Cody's going to be positioned for Mania against Roman, and I don't necessarily think a title needs to be on the line for that, to be honest. But we'll see. But Cody and Roman, I think, might be a Mania match down the line. Maybe Cody and Jacob could be the match going in the Mania. We really will see how that will play out. The only other thing I want to mention from the SmackDown, Bob Holly, I think it was, put out a tweet talking about SmackDown or WWE's overseas for the rest of the month, which means a bunch of shows with the awkward chanting or the annoying chanting, and I mean, he's not wrong. I think there's the question, and this may have been a question in the Discord. Let me double check before I talk about this. So it's not really the same question, but there is a question similar to it. So I'll wait to make that point in the question of the questions from the Discord. Anyway, the second thing I want to talk about is Kit Wilson's entrance. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like it. I gotta say this. When it comes to Tron and music, this is the best in the company, right? Tron and music often feel like now that like it's an afterthought to the but for something like me, I like that level of production, and so I think the music is probably the best right now. Right, I like the Tron. I think the Kit Wilson chant. You have a chant, right? Anytime in your music you can have a chantable phrase in your song or in a dance that you do, I think that helps. Let's talk about Kit Wilson, though. I can't think of his partner's name off the top of my... Elton Prince. Elton Prince is injured. And who knows when he comes back. So you can't have Kit Wilson sitting doing nothing, right? And I think he's a good enough star that he could benefit from a singles run. And I think when Elton Prince is ready to come back, you can easily squeeze him back together. Squeeze Pretty Deadly back together as a tag team. Do I think do I think Kit Wilson needs to go further than the mid-card? Absolutely not. I think this should come where Kit Wilson's very good at putting people over and being kind of entertaining, right? And so I see him in a Dolph Ziggler role until Elton Prince comes back, and then possibly have that big reunion type story. That would be That'd be fine. I don't dislike Kit Wilson getting this singles run. Does he deserve like the world championship? No. But I think fighting for the U.S. title would be perfectly fine for him. Putting people over would be perfectly fine for him until he can get back in the tag division. Thirdly, for some wrestling thing, I don't really like to get into like the independent scene or in the drama that goes on there because we'll talk about absolutely randos, but this one's not a rando. Priscilla Kelly, formerly known as Gigi Dolan, is being talked about a lot in the social media sphere because she took a booking in Israel. Now, I don't know what the cause was for it or what's going on, but she took a booking in Israel and she promoted it like wrestlers are supposed to, because that's how indie promoters and indie book wrestlers get paid. Essentially, when you take a booking, your part of your booking is to promote your booking, right? And so she says, hey, I'm going to Israel. And I don't know exactly what happened. I'm not all in the drama. But essentially, she gets ridiculed. How dare you support Israel? Probably from a bunch of anti-Israel, pro-Palestine supporters. And she basically gets bullied from the IWC to cancel the booking, which she does. She cancels the booking, apologizes to the woke mob, which is absolutely ridiculous, bro. Like this is like she can't go and take a show in a country that you don't like. That's absolutely crazy to me, right? That I just don't. I know she deleted her Twitter now. I think it's absolutely crazy how the IWC has this much influence on some of these wrestlers who want to be buddy-buddy with the fans. Like, take your booking, make your money, Gigi. Priscilla, take any booking you can get, because you don't know if you're ever going to get another one, right? And so I think this is absolutely crazy that she would even apologize for taking the booking. Like, it's her career. She could do whatever she wants, and she should be supported for it. But also, like, taking a booking in Israel doesn't mean she supports Israel. And I think that's absolutely crazy that there's no nuance among the IWC weirdos, the sickos, as they like to call themselves. It would be like me, you know, if I was a wrestler, if I was offered a booking in China. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the Chinese government, but if they're willing to pay for me to, now I highly doubt they do wrestling in China, but I don't know, right? Or if I were booked to go to a place like California, right? I probably, on a general basis, wouldn't step into the state of California. But if I was offered a booking to do a job, then absolutely, like, I would do it. And I know that's not as crazy as, like, Israel, but I don't know. I think it's crazy that the IWC has this much impact on some of the independent wrestlers. The last thing for wrestling, though, and this is several weeks old. I'm a little bit late to this conversation. I keep forgetting to put it in my notes to talk about it, but I remembered it as I was planning the show today. William Regal made a post a couple weeks ago about injuries and neck injuries and essentially taking care of oneself, because you never know how long the career is going to last. Doing something stupid, you want to be healthy. Essentially, everything that I've been saying about and complaining about for the last 2 to 3 years for some of these indie shows, AEW shows, with some of the stupid spots that they do, he essentially came out and said, "Hey, you guys probably don't want to continue doing stupid stuff because you never know when you might die, right?" And I think we got kind of the response I expected. a lot of wrestlers came and said sort of agreed with Regal, but a lot of the fans, we kind of got the response I expected. Like the sickos who love the spots were like, well, you know, if you could do it safely. And here's the thing, you can never do it safely. Every time you do the move and it is executed and you don't get hurt, it's not you being safe. It's you being lucky, right? Doing certain moves, just doing the move, even if you do it in a way where you don't get hurt, it's not being safe, right? Doing a move where you land on the back of your neck several times a year is not safe, right? You're lucky. And one time you're going to do it, and you're not going to be as lucky. And I think that's the point William Regal was trying to make. So I just wanted to bring it up that I didn't just blow over that conversation. I don't know. I think William Regal's right. And I think it ultimately, until the fans start demanding wrestlers to care about themselves, then, right? But the problem is the fans love the spots. And they love the spot fest and the clown show that some wrestling shows can be. And until that stops, I mean, until that demand goes away, they're just going to keep supplying it, right? So it's sort of like the same thing that I say with, like, I don't know, this is probably more for the Friday episode on Just Yappin', but like, you can do all you can to try to stop drugs from entering America, right? You can, attack the cartels and all that. But until you actually fix the problem of drug use in America, somewhere, some way, drugs are going to be used, right? It's a human behavioral issue, right? And so as long as there is a demand for drugs, there's going to be a supply that's able to provide it. If you can lower the demand, there won't be a need for a supply. Which is why I think the best way that we can end the drug epidemic in America is behavioral and rehab and getting drug users off the street. And then by doing that and getting them clean and off of drugs, then we won't have to worry about drug use. And maybe my logic doesn't work properly. I don't know. I think it sounds like a smart plan. I don't necessarily think that, we're just going to attack the cartels. Well, the cartel will then just send a new leader to fill the role of the guy you just killed or captured or arrested, and there always will be a supply of drugs until you remove the demand. I think that's just basic economics. But anyway, that's for a different time. If you continue the supply of dangerous wrestling moves, or excuse me, if the demand for more dangerous wrestling moves to be done is still there, their wrestlers are going to supply it to fulfill the demand. So until you change viewing habits and expectations of what should be done, until you end the demand for the stupid spots, the supply will always be there to fulfill that. But with that, let's sort of transition to the first round of the NFL playoffs. Was absolutely fantastic, right? Close games all over the place. We start with the Panthers and the Rams, and everyone's going into this game saying the Rams are going to blow out the Panthers, and the Panthers keep it close, and then just not able to finish, right? And I don't think the Panthers have anything to be ashamed of. They won the division. They made the playoffs. I think they're ahead of schedule for where they should be in the rebuild. And they have, I think, the 9th most cap. They're in the top 10 in cap space going into the offseason. They have a decent first-round pick. I think this draft class first round is pretty deep. I'm not exactly familiar with what their needs are per se, but I think Bryce Young has proven he is that dude. He is their future quarterback, at least for the next 2 to 3 years. Maybe we can reconsider in 2 to 3 years. But I like where the Panthers are as far as the rebuild is. And so we got to see where they are playing a harder schedule, playing a bunch of number ones next year, first place division winners. And we'll see how that is. But I think the Panthers are ahead of schedule in their rebuild, and with the right coaching, right developing, the GM, is it Dan Morgan, the GM? If he can retain some of the roster that are free agents now, sign some free agents, draft good, I really like where the Panthers could be headed. And so the Rams, they escape. They're going to go to the next round. They're going to take on the winner of the Bears, or they're going to take on the Bears, with the Bears coming back to beat the Packers. Now, if you're a Packers fan, I'm sorry. They came out. They started to blow out the Bears, and I'm like, maybe I was wrong with how I felt about the Packers. I really didn't think the Packers would win, and I kind of thought the opposite would happen, and the Bears would blow out the Packers. Well, the Bears started to come back. I ended up, after it was like 21-0, I ended up turning the TV off, going to bed, and then I was awakened. I didn't really turn the TV off. I just went upstairs. I was awakened by screaming downstairs, and of, oh my God, the Packers came back, essentially, right? And everyone in my house was cheering for the Bears, and so they were happy and loud and woke me up. But anyway, that is what it is. But so beautiful first day of the playoffs, and then we get to Sunday, right? And we start with the Bills and the Jaguars, and I'll be honest, I didn't pay attention to a lot of the game. The Jaguars didn't play well. I don't think the Bills played all that well either. I think, again, I don't think the Jaguars have anything to be disappointed in. Winning the division, winning 13 games, well ahead of schedule, I believe. And a lot of the season was played without Travis Hunter, even. So you get him back at some point next year. I think Jacksonville might be a market because of their head coach that might be attractive to some free agents. So typically Florida's a hot market. Miami, Tampa are typically the markets people like to go into because Jacksonville is just not really a good team. But I think if Jacksonville is smart, you might, if you could convince them, hey, we're starting something here where we look to continue to win, I think Jacksonville could be a market. Some of the bigger name free agents who, would like to play in Florida because there's no income tax. It's a little bit of a better state to live in. It's Florida. If you move to Jacksonville, you're on the beach. And so it's. I think that it could be a market, though a smaller market. I think it's a market that some big name free agents could be interested in going into. So I'm interested to see where Jacksonville goes. As for the Bills are going to Denver. And I'm conflicted about that game because I think the Bills can win. I don't like Denver. I'm just going to be honest. I think Denver is the biggest pretender in the playoffs. Them and Seattle, I think, are beatable. And I think both will actually lose this week. I think both 1 seeds coming off of the bye. I think both are going to lose this week. And we'll talk about why I think the Seahawks are losing here in a second. Because that's actually they're playing the winner of the next game we're going to talk about, which is Philly versus the 49ers. Now, I have a lot of questions because DJ Wavy D is an Eagles fan, and he asked a lot of questions about what I thought about the Eagles and for the questions from the Discord. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the Eagles in this segment. I do want to talk about the 49ers. I'm not surprised at all at the result of this game. Just not. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm just not at all surprised at the result of this game. In fact, I predicted it. I predicted the Niners to win. And I just knew the play calling was on offense for the Eagles. And everyone kept saying to me how injured the Niners are, and they took another loss with Kittle. And our resident queen of the Bay Area, Kara, she's the queen of the Discord. She's I like the type of fan she is because she's realistic. She was in there saying, "Hey, we got the win, but we I was talking to her after the game, and she said, we didn't play well, and we got to learn to move the ball." And she started listing all the things, and she was being a fan, right? And I respect her for it. Here's where I got to sort of throw it back against what she's saying. So first off, I don't think missing Kittle is all that of a loss. I think the offense for the 49ers will adjust. I think with having someone like Kyle Juszczyk on your roster in the fullback position, you essentially have an elite level tight end playing in the backfield. I really like Juszczyk. In fact, I like teams that still use fullbacks. The Patriots use a fullback with Jake Westover, who is a tight end. And so the fullback position, when it gets used, is essentially just another tight end position. And I think Kyle Juszczyk, if he moved to tight end, would be a top 10 tight end, right? And so I think he replaces Kittle's production. If at least if I was Shanahan, that's how he's. Here's why I like the 49ers going forward. When you look at the teams in the NFC, right? You have Seattle, you have Chicago, you have LA, and you have the 49ers. Now, obviously, McVay and the 49ers and Stafford have won a Super Bowl and have played in another in 2018. Now, that was Goff instead of Stafford, but you get the point, right? They've made it before. And so, outside of that, Shanahan and Purdy and the Niners have been to a Super Bowl. Granted, they lost, right? And so I don't think Seattle has the experience. Sam Darnold, I think, was in the same position with Minnesota last year, right? In the playoffs. Now, granted, they didn't have the number one seed, and I don't think they had a home game. But playoff football, it's sort of like when we get to the Chargers-Patriots game with Herbert, right? Herbert just hasn't been able to go across winning a playoff game because playoff football is so much different. Now, we'll talk about Herbert here in a second, but I think the same thing with Darnold is he's got to prove to me. It's sort of like the situation when Mercedes Moné was winning all the titles in AEW, and everyone was predicting her to lose, and I'm like, well, until they prove to me that they're going to have her lose matches, I'm going to just predict her to win. Or similar with WWE's product, I was like, until they prove to me that Rhea is willing to take a loss, I'm not ever going to predict Rhea to lose type thing. Well, it's the same thing here, right? Until Sam Darnold can prove to me that he can win a playoff game, I'm just going to pick against him. I like the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are a decent team. I think with JSN and Charbonnet and but that's really their team. I can't think of anyone. They got Cooper Kupp, don't they? So my point is I don't necessarily know if Seattle can get over. I'm picking San Francisco to win this game because I like Brock Purdy, and Kara's going to say, well, he needs to move the ball down the field. He needs to clean up the the quarterback play. Here's where I want to throw it back against her, right? There's not a lot of times where, as a Patriots fan, I'm happy saying Dave Portnoy is part of my fan base. Because he says some stupid stuff sometimes. But he said something after the Patriots game that I think absolutely is applicable to the 49ers as well. Playoff football is not about perfection. The Patriots didn't play their best game. The Niners, for sure, did not play their best game against the Eagles. But it's not about perfection in the playoffs. It's about winning. And as long as you do enough to win, that's all that matters. No one's going to look at the fact that Purdy threw an interception or maybe two. No one's going to look at that because he was able to put his team in a situation to win the game. Right? No one's gonna care about the interception in the long run, right? No one's gonna care about Drake May fumbling. I think he fumbled and threw an interception, right? No one's gonna care that Will Campbell for the first 3 quarters was getting eat up by Khalil Mack and the other guy, Awe, I think it was. No one's gonna care about that because at the end of the day, the Patriots won the football game. Right? And we could sit here, and that's actually going to be one of my points I get to when we get to Patriot Corner. And we could sit and nitpick some of the minute details of how the teams play bad. But at the end of the day, if you're winning football games, that's all that matters in the playoffs. And so I absolutely think Seattle will lose to San Francisco. Because I think San Fran, the defense for San Fran, look, I know it's hurt. I know there's no Bosa in the line. I mean, I think at one point they mentioned, was it Eric Kendrick or Kyle Kendricks, one of the two, that was just signed that week. I mean, their linebacking core is like 5th, 6th string now. And I get all of that. But I think there's a culture there. They showed me in that second half yesterday or Sunday that the 49ers defense is legit. Even in the situation it is in with the injuries, I think if they can play just good enough to win the football game and allow Purdy to just play good enough to score some points, I think the Niners can, without a doubt, make a run. I think the Niners are the best team remaining in the NFC. Now, with the remaining teams in the NFC, I am 100% certain and the AFC representative in the Super Bowl is winning. Because I think with the remaining team, now obviously I'm recording this during the Steelers-Texans game, and I think that just kicked off when I clicked record, or about the time. Right now, Pittsburgh's winning. As I'm recording, there's about 6 minutes left in the first quarter. Pittsburgh's winning, which is the team I kind of want to win, by the way. But of the remaining teams, withstanding Texans Steelers, I think there are 3. Well, I think the Patriots are without a doubt contenders to win the Super Bowl. I think the Bills are going to be considered favorites because of Josh Allen. I don't necessarily agree with that take, but I genuinely believe. Now, here's what I also want to say. I told you guys the 3 best teams in the NFC were in the NFC West, and they're all in this round, right? I told you there was a possibility this could happen. The 3 best teams in the NFC this year are in the NFC West. And more than likely, we're going to have Rams beat the Bears. And I think that's what's going to happen. I do. I as much as I like Caleb Williams and what the Bears are doing, I just don't think you can continue to come back from. And I think the Rams are beatable. I do. I think the Rams are very beatable. I just don't know if the Bears are going to do it, right? But We know without a doubt we're going to have at least one representative from the NFC West in the NFC Championship game, and you have a chance to have two. But let's go to Patriot Corner and finish out Sunday night. And we'll talk about, we'll start with the good, and it's the defense, right? The good is the defense. Only allowed 3 points. Now, it should have probably been at least 6, because the Chargers, first time in the red zone, they're down at like the 1 yard line and is 4th and goal. And Harbaugh brings on the offense. And I'm screaming at the TV, just like trying to make sense of this. Like, why are you not taking the 3 points? Why are you going for it? Because they missed the 4th down play. I absolutely hate the NFL. And it's how some of these offensive coaches and how the coaches in the NFL are coaching now. I absolutely despise this. Like, we have to go, if we're 4th and short, we have to go for it. I absolutely despise that mindset. I just hate it. Like, especially when you're in range to get a field goal. Because at the end of the day, you're going to risk getting 0 points to try to get an extra 4. And at the end of the day, now, does it change the outcome of the game? Probably not. But you got to think about it. There were 2 turnovers, a fumble and an interception that the Chargers got against us, where they got 0 points off of turnovers. I believe that the field goal didn't come off a turnover. But the point is, that defense for the Patriots is fantastic. And to hear Spillane in the interview say that there were Chargers who told him at the end of the game that they had no idea what the Patriot defense was running. And then to hear Dan Orlovsky, I saw him tweet something where he said, watching the game, Dan played quarterback, so he knows how to read a defense. He doesn't know how to not step out of the back of the end zone, but he knows how to read a defense. But he even posted something along the lines of, whatever the Patriots were doing, I couldn't tell what formation they were in. And so whatever we're doing on defense is working. And I made a post on social media during the game that essentially said, this Patriots defense is good enough to win us the Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, it is defenses. That old adage still plays in. Defenses still win championships. And so the Patriots defense is good enough to win the Super Bowl. Without a doubt. I thoroughly believe this. With that said, let's go over to the offense. I mentioned Will Campbell already. Will Campbell played the worst game of his rookie season last night. Could not block to save his life. You know what that means? It's all right. That's all right. Again, we're not looking for perfection. I think he'll get better. I think there was definitely some jitters. But he was also going against someone like Khalil Mack. Only one of the best pass rushers in the game. Right? I think that really got to him. I think he'll be fine going in this week. Offensively, I'm glad Ramondre has sort of hit his, because there was a sort of a storyline in New England media early in the season after week 3 where he fumbled like 4 times in that game against Pittsburgh. There was sort of this narrative of Ramondre's got to go. And I even was talking to some Patriot fans, and they were still sort of, if Ramondre can hold on to the ball. And I replied, I was like, well, Ramondre has cleaned that up since he came back from the injury and has really played really good ball the back half of the season. And I know a lot of people want Travion to be the number 1 running back. I like the way our team is, where we don't really have a true number 1. We have a dual threat system of essentially a 1A and 1B. And I like that because I think that's how first off, I think that's how the league is going to turn into with the raising of the salaries. running backs you're going to ask for. Your teams are going to have running backs. If they draft a running back, they're going to draft them in the first round. Or if they draft someone to be an immediate starter at the running back position, it will be in the first round, so they have a 5th-year option to withhold payment. Or they're going to draft them 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and they get 4 years. And if they're good, maybe they get paid. But if they're like superstar level, I think the league is going to manipulate how running backs are used to withhold long. I genuinely believe we're going to start seeing dual running back systems. I do. I think we'll have like 1A, 1B on a lot of teams. I think it's good for health, but I like the way the Patriots' offense is as well. Like, I don't think the offense is necessarily bad, but I like knowing that if Drake May throws an interception, the defense can go out there and only let up 3 points or let up 0 points. And it's not going to necessarily kill us if Drake May has a bad game. Drake May played fantastic, though, minus the fumble and the interception. Him being able to check down, run around, move in and out of the pocket, make some great decisions. This wasn't Drake May last year. Drake May was very rushed last year. And even in his 2nd year in the league, like, he fits in, bro. I really, really, really enjoy that. Milton Williams did good on the defensive side. We had like 6 sacks, which was something we kind of struggled with throughout the season, was getting pressure and finishing and getting sacks. I thoroughly think our team, the Patriots team, is the best team in football right now. Thoroughly agree with that. So with that, let's make predictions for next week. And we know dates, but we don't know time. So Saturday is the Bills and the Broncos. If I had to make a prediction, I'm going to go Bills on this one. I don't have trust. I don't think Bo Nix is necessarily as good as people are hyping him up to be. I don't think the Broncos are necessarily all that good either. I could be wrong. I mean, they got a good team, but I don't think it's like great. And I think the Bills there's just something that comes with playoff experience, and Josh Allen has that, and the Bills have that. And anytime, like as much as I don't like Josh Allen, he is probably the number 1 quarterback in the league right now. And just from a pure athletic standpoint, I don't think necessarily he does things that other quarterbacks can't do. Like, I think Herbert, if he had protection, and I think Drake, like from a production standpoint, I don't think Allen's necessarily the best. But I think from a pure athletic standpoint, Josh Allen is an athletic freak. And I think it's sometimes that just clicks. And that is the determining factor in who wins a game or not. So I'm going to go with Buffalo over Denver. And then that same night, I believe it is the Bears and the Rams, I believe. I don't actually know off the top of my head now that I'm thinking about it. Probably should have looked this up. I lied. It's the Seahawks and Niners. I'm going to go Niners on that one. I'm going to go Niners on that. That's probably going to be the night game, Saturday night. Granted, both of those games are going to be on the West Coast, so either or could be the night game. But I do think the Niners will win, and so I'll have the 2 6 seeds win against the 1 seeds on Saturday. The Patriots and the Well, the Bears and the Rams, since we know, we'll pick the Patriots last. But the Bears and the Rams, I'm going to pick the Rams will win this football game. I don't know. And I think it really comes down to how do the Bears start, because I don't think the Bears can come back against this Rams team the way they did against the Packers. I just don't think they have that much luck in them again. I think either way, this game could go either way, and it would not surprise me if the Bears win if they keep it close. But I think the Rams will have just enough to pull it out. Now, the Patriots at home hosting a playoff game again. And I'll say this. If it's Pittsburgh, I think it's easy. Patriots will 100% win the game. I think Pittsburgh's the easier team. If it's the Texans, though, that scares me a little bit more because of the pass rush. But with that being said, Patriots will win no matter whoever. I think the Patriots win no matter who the opponent is. I think Pittsburgh's an easier opponent. As we stand right now, Pittsburgh is winning in what seems to be a boring game. But yeah, so we'll pick New England for that. All right, so let's jump into questions from the Discord. We got a lot of them. I'm going to try to hit as many as I can. I got about 40 minutes before I want to cut this off. And so I think we can hit most of these questions. First one from B Master. We got a couple from B Master here to start. Who is a wrestler that had an amazing career in another company that is now in a new company and is being wasted? And I think a lot of people, as they hear the question read, are going to think of someone who left AEW, went to WWE, and is being wasted, though I don't really know of any of the people who do that, or someone who left WWE and went to AEW and is now being wasted. But I'm going to go another route. I'm going to go someone who is now currently in the AEW system. I think she's actually working ROH, but she used to be in TNA. And that is Deonna Purrazzo. Deonna Purrazzo used to be the number one women's wrestler in TNA. If she would have stayed in TNA, I 100% believe she could have been the centerpiece of that women's division. And it kind of irritates me that she's not on mainstream TV for AEW anymore in like a serious role. I don't know. She's so good. And I don't know what the reason is she's not being utilized more, but that is going to be my pick for that. Next question also from B-Master. What is something about wrestling when you sit back and think makes you smile? I'll say this. There's not an individual thing, but it's sort of like as I'm watching, if I can lay down or, sit down and watch a good show, like if I can sit down, turn the TV on, and immerse myself and enjoy some entertainment for 2 to 3 hours, and just be immersed in a whole new universe, that's a fantastic feeling. Like, have you ever gone to like a movie and just sat there and the movie ended and you're like, oh man, I got to go back to real life now. I got to go back to the real world, right? I was so immersed in this story or in this universe that the director perfectly created, and now that's over and I got to go back into the real world, right? And when wrestling does that, and it doesn't do it often anymore, but when you can curate entertainment to where I can sit and just be immersed in a new world that's different than the world that I live in, and could just be entertained for 2 to 3 hours, that is what makes me smile. That's what I look for in wrestling. Next question: if you were offered a job in WWE, what would you want to do? So if WWE were to say, "Hey, we will hire you in any position you want to be," what do you want to be? I think most people would immediately assume that I would say like in-ring performer, and that's not even the case. I would want to do, I'm a podcaster, so I think what would be cool, and I've even sort of like planned this out, like I wonder if I emailed WWE if they would accept this. So you know how they have like Raw Talk, and they used to have like Talking Smack. I don't know why they got rid of that, but I think it would be cool. And what I would like to do would be like to have an NXT podcast that interviewed throughout the week different NXT superstars, made content at the Performance Center. I covered Evolve, covered the PC, developed talent, covered NXT, and sort of had a kayfabe style, like in the WWE universe, kayfabe storytelling podcast that was sort of interview like a Chris Van Vliet type thing, but within the kayfabe world of what's on TV. I think that would be that would be what I would want to do. Like imagine, me being the voice of NXT and being able to interview the up and comers and the different superstars and getting all these little inside interviews about how are you feeling going into New Year's Eve or whatever, right? Going into this PLE and just having like a daily show that's sort of covering the world of NXT from a kayfabe perspective, right? That would be what I would want to do if WWE were to hire me to do anything. Because I don't necessarily want to be like an announcer like Michael Cole, because I don't think I would be good at that. I'm not very comfortable with that. I'd be comfortable on the mic, but commentary isn't really my thing. In-ring performer, definitely not. Like a manager, definitely not. Like even like on-screen performer in like a GM role, I would consider that. But ultimately, I think kayfabe NXT podcast, like daily episodes that I think that would be fun, right? I think that would be fun. He asks, is there any NFL jersey that you absolutely love, and if there are any that you hate? Let's start with the hate, and the answer is no. I can't think of a NFL jersey where I look at it and like, ew, I hate that. I just can't think of one. There's some that I would like, that wasn't the best design. But there isn't any that I would actually say that I hate. And would, right? Now, when it comes to love, there's definitely some that I love. So, from a vintage standpoint, the Patriots red jersey is like the vintage red 60s and 70s and 80s uniforms. Without a doubt, I believe are the best uniforms in football history. Just a little biased, but that's what, right? I also like the Kelly Green Eagles jerseys. I think those are cool. As far as like more modern jerseys, the rivalry jersey that the 49ers had this year, the black with the gold cool font, I love those jerseys. Absolutely love those. The Ravens had I think they still use it occasionally, a purple with gold numbers and gold lettering. I love that jersey as well. Trying to think of any other jerseys. I can't think of anything that I would else put in like the love. I'm mostly neutral on a lot of jerseys in the NFL now. The Texans red, all red. I know a lot of people hate it. I love that jersey. I really do. Yeah, I think that's enough of like the love. And I think a lot of the jerseys in NFL history I'm just sort of like neutral on. I will also say I've kind of gotten accustomed to the all brown Cleveland Browns jerseys, and those are kind of fire, to be honest with you. So we'll take that with what you want. Next one from B Master. Who is your favorite male and female world champion of all time for any company, past or present? We'll start with male world champion. I'm just going to go ahead and say Triple H because he's my favorite wrestler of all time. That would only make sense that he would be my favorite world champion of all time. Especially that Reign of Terror reign that everyone hated in 03 to 05. Absolutely legendary. As far as women go, it's hard because I'm not necessarily. All punt aside, I just, if you ask Dave Meltzer this question, he's gonna pull up some Japanese wrestler from the 1980s that no one knows about. That would be his answer. I just don't know who I would pick. I think I have to say for me it's like who made the title stand out the most, and that's why I like someone like Lita or Trish or Tori. I don't even know if Tori won. I think Tori won the Divas title, didn't she? Or Stacy Keibler or something like that. They didn't really stand out. And then when you get to AJ Lee made it stand out, but I don't know if necessarily she was my favorite. Paige really made it stand out. That's a whole different story. Nikki Bella, but I don't ever think I cheered for Brie more than I cheered for Nikki, just to be honest. So I'd probably say that my favorite women's world champion of all time would go down to either Liv Morgan or Rhea Ripley, because I think that they have held some of the better reigns with the women's world championship that I can think of. And if I had to give a nod, it would probably be to Rhea, just to be honest. So we'll go with Rhea Ripley. Why did they choose to do a PLE level event on TV rather than at Royal Rumble? And I'm assuming you're talking about the 3 stages of hell that they just ran on Friday. And while I can't speak for the company as to why they truly did it, my guess would be is because they're overseas. My guess is internally as a company, the logic is we're only going to be in each one of these cities once or twice this year, so we have to give them something worth coming out for. And so you're going to get some of the bigger feuds and a title change and a bigger match. And I'm not necessarily against it, but Rumble is in, a week and a half? So it does kind of make you wonder, why wouldn't they wait a little bit longer, right, to make that change? But I also think a lot of it has to come down to Rumbles in Saudi, and I think the play is Sami Zayn winning Royal Rumble. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I think a Sami versus Drew feud at Mania could be the play. And then the last one from B Master. If Netflix has WWE library, what is the point of having ESPN and Peacock? Realistically, in a perfect world, everything would just be on Netflix and everything would be perfect. So the true answer, just for context, is Peacock is still going to house NXT PLEs and the SmackDown library until they get removed off of Peacock, right? And I ultimately see that happening soon. Probably by the end of the year. At least NXT. And then the ultimate answer, though, is money, right? It all comes down to money, right? Corporate greed, right? Like I said last week. TKO wants as much money as they could possibly get. And so they have 3 different streaming deals. You have Peacock and ESPN and Netflix, and I'm sure maybe Paramount might get involved in this eventually down the line. But I mean, if you really think about it, the TKO group has dealings with all the major streaming networks. With UFC on Paramount, you got ESPN, you got Netflix, you got Peacock. I mean, outside of the, Discovery and HBO, which they can't be on because Tony Khan's over there. But they got the big ones, right? And so that's what it is. It's to hold the market and to make money, ultimately, right? So this comes from Wavy D. What's a reasonable trade package the Eagles can acquire for A.J. Brown? I think a lot of people are expecting a first-round pick. And you have to completely lower that expectation. That's not happening. I think reasonable is he gets traded. I think if he gets traded, which I think is a big possibility, he's going to get traded either day 1 of the NFL draft or day 2 of the NFL draft, or the days leading up to the draft. But I don't think he goes for a first-round pick. I think at best a second and maybe some money cash offerings. I don't think a player gets involved in the trade. But I do think it will be I think it will be a team that has a lot of picks in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and you'll probably end up getting like a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, and maybe like a 2nd in the next year's draft. I don't see a world where you'll get a 1st or a 2nd this year for A.J. Brown, because a lot of the risk that the team that's trading for him is going to be is the large salary. And so I just don't think I don't think there's a team that would want to trade a first-round pick for that to take the risk in the large salary, right? And so there's a lot of potential hurdles in a trade for A.J. Brown. I ultimately think the Patriots could be players at it. I don't necessarily know for certain. We'll see. But I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic for the Eagles in this offseason. He then asked, do you think Mike McDaniel would be a good offensive coordinator fit for the Eagles? I don't know. This is assuming Kevin Patullo gets fired. It didn't happen today that I'm aware of, so that's worrisome. But I'm ultimately of the mindset that I don't know enough about Mike McDaniel and his play calling abilities to know if it'll be a good OC fit. I think that's the position he had before he came over to Miami to be the head coach. And so I think he has experience doing it. I think he'd be an okay fit. I think anything could be better than Kevin Patullo, though. So the problem that I have with the Eagles getting a new offensive coordinator is this would be your 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years. And that type of change, and it might even be your 4th in 4 years. I don't remember. But it would definitely be at least your 4th in the last 6 years. Because you had Steichen, but he left after the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, right? So, the first time. And so, or Steichen, I think, was D coordinator, and I don't know, I can't think of the dude who just got fired from the Cardinals. I don't know if that's Steichen or I don't know. But you've had a lot of change on the offense in the last 5 years. And I think doing it again is ultimately one of those things where, like, you got to think about potential, like, year-to-year familiarity with the offense. I want to say this. Part of me wonders if a lot of the play calling isn't necessarily Kevin Patullo. Now, I don't have any insight on this, but LaShawn McCoy was on whatever show he was on. I don't remember what he was on. And he said, hey, I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but I've heard some things. And Jalen can't really run exotic schemes. That they got to keep the offense simple because that's the only way Jalen can run the playbook. And if that's the case, part of me wonders how much of the offensive struggle this year was actually Jalen Hurts. Right? How much of the offensive struggle and the lack of exotic play calls is because that's what Jalen can run. Now, I don't know, and I'm kind of skeptical on that. But what if that's the case? What if Jalen's sort of the one holding the offense back and is now just being exposed? Right? So, I don't know if I believe that, but that's something that's out there, right? So, Kara put in a question here it got me thinking a lot today. So she said, if you were the NFL commissioner, no more Roger Goodell. Commissioner is now WETOODEEP. Put on my commissioner hat. And she said, I sent you 3 proposals. Which of these are you signing, and which ones of these are you vetoing? So let's take them one by one as they come across the desk of new commissioner of the NFL, WETOODEEP. First one is the best of 3 games in the wild card round, divisional round, or both to ensure the absolute best can make it to the conference championship. I will tell you right now, of the 3, this one was the easiest one to make my decision. Because the second I opened up a file that said this proposal, without any thinking, the answer is veto. And let me explain to you why. First off, just an absolute safety nightmare to play a 3-game series in a playoff round. Right? I need you to think about what football is as a sport, right? On average, about 120 snaps a game, and every single one of them, you're getting hit in a miniature car crash. So now if you had to do essentially 120, 240, 360, 360 plays in a 3-game series at most, injuries would increase, right? But ultimately, I need you to understand that football, what makes football unique is that there is a scarcity of games, right? So, for example, right, there's a reason why NBA season's mid-season, NHL season's mid-season, I don't care. You know why? Because the 82-game regular season for the NBA means absolutely nothing until you get to about the last month to see who gets into the playoffs. But games in October, December don't really matter. And hockey's the same way. The NHL is the same way, right? Games in October in hockey don't really mean as much as games in late February, March, and April, at the last 2.5 months of the season, when the games are more spaced out. By the way, like if you look at the NHL schedule, March and April, the games are more spread out. Right? And so I would also argue, though, that the only sport that should have a series, and Siri on my phone is going to light up as I say that. The only series that should, or league that should have a best of 3 playoff, or best of 5 or best of 7, would be the MLB. And that's because in the MLB, a lot of times it's not skill that determines victories, but it's weird variables like pitching matchups, or wind, or what the mount, a one weird bounce off the mound that sends the ball in a completely different direction that it shouldn't have gone in, can affect the game. And so there's a variable but you also got to understand, in football, the variables of randomness are very minute over 120 plays, right? And so, without a doubt, I don't think best of 3. We also got to understand, unless you're really looking for money, I don't know. And you can't do this like we're going to play one game a week in the series. Like, you can't really do that, because then that would extend the playoffs forever, right? So you got to do them back to back to back games, day after day after day, and right. But also, like, just look at like I personally, like, in the playoffs, right? Even with hockey or basketball, right? And I'm going to use basketball for a reason here. In the NBA playoffs, right? Let's say it was NBA Finals, Celtics-Lakers, right? And Game 1 happens and the Celtics lost. I'm not concerned going into Game 2 that we're, right? Why? Because if we win Game 2, we're right back in the series. But even if we lose Game 2, we're down 2-0. We win Game 3, guess what? We're right back in the series. We go back Game 4, we win, we tie up the series. You see, now games are going to start gaining more importance. But like the first 3-4 games in a series don't actually have much meaning, right? It isn't until you start getting to potential elimination games around Game 5 or Game 6, Game 7, right? And that's why Game 7 is always the most important game in a series that people care about, because there's actual stakes in an elimination game. Whereas if you take the NBA finals and then you compare it to something like March Madness, where if it's losing, you're out, and it's only one game, March Madness has much more at stake, and that's why it draws more fans on average per game, right? Even like a 2-15 game, right? Whereas the 2 seed versus the 15, like a Duke Lehigh or something, gets a lot of potential viewership because there's the potential of an upset, right? And so I honestly think the NBA should go to one loss and you're out. I think the NHL should do it. I even think something like baseball could do it. But the reason baseball and hockey and all of them don't do it is why? It's less risk. There's less risk management, and the longer series go, the more likely the bigger markets and the better teams end up winning, right? It's just kind of a proven statistic at that point. And so a lot of times these leagues continue to do it for risk management so that your best teams, like the Dodgers, don't get eliminated when they play a bad game, one game, but then dominate the other 4 and win 4 games in the series, right? So, absolutely will veto that. The second one here, allow teams to challenge referee mistakes, overturn bad calls, and combat excessive challenges, or with taking timeouts from teams or yardage, if they get it wrong, right? So this one made me think a little bit, because on the surface, this is a fair proposal. We want fair play. But then I'll just say this. I'm vetoing this. And in fact, if I'm commissioner, I think I'm going back. What I mean by that is we do way too much to try to have a perfect game. We need instant replay. We need 74 camera angles to watch every way this could have happened. We need virtual assistants to see where the ball is at. And we're trying to make perfection. And guess what? It's ruining the game. I would take the league back to the early 2000s. No instant replay. No virtual assistants. No 74 camera angles. Just play the game. And yes, sometimes a bad call happens. Guess what? That's life. It's not fair. You pull up your pants, you tighten your bootstraps, and you figure out a way to get past it. And that's football. If a bad call happens or a missed call happens, guess what? That's life. Humanity isn't perfect. And I think this ultimate desire to make football perfect, and we got to catch every call that happens. You guys realize what this would happen, right? Is every holding call eventually would be challenged. There was holding on that play, right? And ultimately it's going to slow the game down. Ultimately, it's not going to benefit anybody. And so because of that, I think there's too much, of a desire for a perfect game, where we have to have everything be perfect, and taking out the sort of human element that's part of the strategy of football is overcoming the human variable of the game. And so if I was commissioner, I would 100% veto this, but I would also 100% propose my own measure to pass that would say less instant replay, less cameras, less regulation, make the human element of the game more implicit. Let's go back. Let's stop trying to, make football a utopia where everything gets called and right, because it's not going to be called fairly. We could try as much as we can. There's still a human aspect to it, and I think we're doing too much. Right, we got to go back. And then the third and final proposal: teams with city franchise names, for example, the Dallas Cowboys, must play in the city they represent, not outside the city, not close to, but in the city. And so, for one reason and one reason only, I'm vetoing this. And that is, I think there's a bunch of variables in this that I don't think would make this possible for every team. For example, lack of space in the city to actually build a stadium, construction cost, zoning laws. So, for example, Dallas technically plays in Arlington, but no one ever thinks of Arlington when you say that. Like I don't necessarily think there's a real issue in that. Like, a lot of people just think, oh, Dallas plays in Texas. I don't see the need for this, because, like, the 49ers are San Francisco, but they play in Santa Clara. Are we going to really, right? Now, maybe I think there's really only two teams that we could really say should probably rebrand themselves, and that's the Giants and the Jets, because they play in New Jersey, they play literally in the same state, or they play in a different state than they're representing. But even then, where the stadium is located is like what, a few miles from the New York border. I don't have a big deal with it. I don't know if it's necessarily worth caring about something that not every team is going to be able to do, right? And so, like, but also then you have like Kansas City Chiefs, like they're moving to Kansas instead of Missouri, but they'll still be in Kansas City. They'll just be in Kansas City, Kansas, instead of Kansas City, Missouri. Like, or like the Chicago Bears are probably going to actually go over the line and play in Indiana, I believe. And I just don't have a problem with it, because it's not that far away. They're still the Chicago. I don't know. I don't necessarily see a reason in making this change, and rebranding everything, because the only other alternative is, well, you have to play in the city. Well, sometimes we can't. Okay, so then we'll rebrand you. Instead of the Dallas Cowboys, we'll make you the Texas Cowboys. And that doesn't have the same sort of naming, brand recognition. And I just think it's, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily something that big to fight over. So yeah, we'll veto it. I don't know if that's something that would even have a league support to begin with. So there's that, and then we'll continue down the question list here. Who's to blame for the Philadelphia Eagles loss? A lot of people say it's the OC. I think it's a little bit of everyone. Jalen, AJ, the OC, and Nick for not having this cleaned up during the season. I actually think that's a fair take. I hate that this is ultimately getting blamed on Kevin Patullo. Right? Is he a bad OC? Absolutely. But I think there's a little bit of A.J. Brown. I think there's there's been several times that I've watched the Eagles this year where, like, A.J. Brown could have caught balls that he normally would catch, but he dropped them. And it's not just the playoff game, but, like, throughout the season. I think he wants out. And I think I think we have to take the protection off of Jalen Hurts here. Just said it. Like, what if there is a actual issue with Jalen here? Like he's either not picking up the offense or he can't run exotic schemes. I don't know, but I think there's a little bit to blame there with him, right? I think ultimately he's one of the quarterbacks that, like, are kind of like you can't touch him, right? Like if Drake May would have lost the game for us, like Drake May would have been critiqued. And that's sort of the role of the quarterback. You take the heat, right? Because you're the field general. So, yeah, I think there's a little blame to be put on Jalen. I think there's a little bit of heat to be on the whole offense as a whole. Wavy D made a mention, and I don't know if this is one of the questions. I think it could be. Yeah, so it's actually one of the questions that Wavy D asked, so I'll wait to do that. Next question, WWE superstars coming over to your home for dinner. Who is it? What are you preparing to make? Oh, boy. See, I should have asked for clarification. Like, does this have to be a male superstar? Like, I'm hanging out with the bros? Or, because if I could pick anyone, like, it's date night, baby. And I don't know. Sol Ruka is always an option. Tatum, Paxley's always an option. I don't know how Big Body Javi would care, would think about that though. You know, I really don't know. See, if I had to pick one, and I was thinking, I don't even know what I would make, to be honest with you. This is one of those questions that I wish I had a little bit more time. I wish I contemplated on this more than some of the other questions. But let's assume that it's we'll just go with Soruka, because 100% she would be the first one I would ask if I was allowed to. And she seems like she's into some of that vegan shit, to be honest with you. I don't know. Here's the thing. I wouldn't make anything unplanned. Like, I would be like, okay, you're coming over, what do you want? Right? That would be sort of because I'm not going to spend time making something and then, I didn't want that. We're not doing that. Sorry. But yeah, it'd probably be Soruka. I didn't actually see the second part of this question when I saw you submitted it. Anyway. Kara asks, if everyone in the Discord was starting quarterbacks for their team, who would have a better chance of winning the playoffs? So let's go through the people I know teams. So Kara is the Niners, Wavy D is the Eagles, B Masters the Cowboys, I'm the Patriots, I believe Highlanders the Broncos. If all of us were, and Witters is the Steelers. So and we got 6. I don't know everyone's athletic ability, right? Like, I'm just sort of biased and said I think I can lead the Patriots. Like, I'm just going to say that I think I have the best chance of, and it's not because of my play, but the Patriots are sort of plug and play at the quarterback right now with the defense that they have. Like, I can just turn around, hand the ball off to Ramondre, then the next play turn it off and hand it to Travion Henderson, and then maybe throw a dump to Stephon if he's wide open, and then just trust the defense to carry me to victory. But I also think, like, and I'm assuming we're, like, in quarterback shape, right? And so, I think Wavy D would have a grand chance because that offense is stacked, as all stacked can be. So it would either be me or Wavy. We'd probably meet in the Super Bowl. So that's where I'm going. Next one. I know all the commentators and announcers are trying to sugarcoat it. This is Wavy D's, by the way. It act like it's not happening, but Saquon was definitely a step slower all season. Should the Eagles look to move him before the rest of the world sees that he is slowing down? First off, I don't know if I would agree that he's slowing down, though I didn't watch much of the Eagles this year. So I'm going to take your word for it. Let's just say he is. Here would be my issue. The Eagles would have a lot of problems if they're going to try to move on from AJ and Saquon, which I don't think they're going to do, by the way. I think the best chance is AJ. But if they're going to do both, that's a lot of dead cap to move both of them. And there's a lot from AJ just in himself. But that's a lot of dead cap to move both of them. Ultimately, because there's also talk that they got to move on from Jalen. Like, the fan base right now in Philly is losing their mind. Ultimately, I don't think anything happens to change on that team. I think Kevin Patullo's still there. I think Sirianni's still going to be there. I think, like, I had an idea that maybe Sirianni and Patullo would both be fired. I had that idea yesterday, but I'm going to stick to my guns and what I'm feeling right now and say that I don't think Sirianni gets fired. I don't think Patullo gets fired. I think Jalen's going to be the quarterback. I think Saquon's going to be the running back. And I think on week 1, A.J. Brown will be a Philadelphia Eagle. I just don't think that there's any way that they could negotiate a way to move away from all the dead cap. Because if you're, but also, like, imagine what that does. Like, imagine what that does to a team to lose their starting quarterback. Look, Tanner McKee is great, but you're not moving on from Jalen Hurts, right? Tank Bigsby is good, but But you're not moving on from Saquon, especially after you paid him the highest salary of any running back ever, right? There's dead cap to be there, right? And I just don't think that there's a way for you to actually get. I know how he's good at moving money around. I just don't think that there's a way to do it. I just don't. And so those are all the questions. We're going to end the show the way we're going to start ending it from now on. So I asked for recommendations for segments last week, and as the episode was dropping, Kara, or as it was after it dropped and people were listening to it, Kara messaged me a segment idea, said let's try it. So we're going to try it, and it's going to be called the Hot Take Heat Check. And essentially the idea is I'm going to leave you guys with a hot take at the end of each episode. And I want to hear you guys' response to my hot take. I'll do a little bit of explanation, but I'm really just going to leave you with the hot take. And the hot take this week, I think, is a pretty steaming hot take. Like it's blue. Like the flame is blue. It's real hot. Like it's Carolina blue. And that is because my hot take this week is Bryce Young is a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. Right? I think he's a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. I would take Bryce Young over quite a few quarterbacks in this league, to be honest with you. I think that he is the franchise. He proved that Carolina can build around him and will build around him. And I think that next season, I think he could take that next step. And so I'll leave you with that. Bryce Young is a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And so with that, I would like to thank you all for listening. I did pretty good. We're about an hour, 40 minutes. I want to thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the podcast. Don't forget to, right now, we're going to remind you again, if you haven't subscribed to the Just Yapping podcast on audio. Now, if you're listening on YouTube, you're fine. It'll be on the same channel that the Slapping Me community show is on. But if you listen to it on audio, whether it's Apple or Spotify, you have to go find the new RSS links. You could just search it, but easier, just join the Discord, right? Join the Discord, and the links for them are in the new episodes tab for the Just Yappin' podcast. If you haven't subscribed or followed to that yet, also do that. That's another reminder. We would love your reviews, your responses, your questions, your comments. Join the Discord. Leave a review. If you're listening on audio, we would really love a 4 or 5, really a 5-star review. I don't want a 4-star, right? I want a 5-star, right? I don't want no 3-star review. I don't want to know that you think I'm mid. Either I suck or I'm good at this, right? So 5 or 1. Let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. If you listen on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed to the audio, just do it. Leave a review because that helps us out. If you listen to the audio and you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube, go subscribe there. Leave a thumbs. All you got to do is while you're listening to the episode on audio, just go to the YouTube. After you subscribe to it, just hit the thumbs up, leave a hello comment or whatever, and that gets us in the algorithms, right? So a lot of the growth of this really depends on that type of help. It takes like 3 seconds to do it, right? And then share with all of that. I appreciate you all. Thanks again for listening. All the links to everything I just mentioned, for the most part, are in the description of this video. Right there, like you can just click, right, and move on with it. I really appreciate it. Until the next episode, until next Monday, Tuesday, whenever this comes out, right? Yeah, that is right. I will see you on the next episode of the Slapping Meat Community Show. If you listen to Just Yappin', I will see you guys on Friday. If not, have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride. Whether it's NXT or NFL time, going in the ropes and fourth and deep. Slapping Meat Community every Tuesday. Go for the